Hey guys, Mike here from Lunch Money Comics. In my last video, I talked about the realities of hunting for comic books in flea markets. How you don't often find great stuff, it's in terrible condition, or it's overpriced, or maybe you just don't find any comic books at all. And I said in that video that the key to finding good comic books in strange and unusual places is persistence. Because honestly guys, most of the time, you're not going to find great stuff. You're going to strike out more often than you succeed. But if you keep at it and you keep hunting, you may just find something amazing. I know this is true because it's happened to me in the past. As a matter of fact, it happened to me yesterday. I found an incredible comic book at an indoor flea market at a great price. And the story of how I found this comic book is one born out of previous failure. So I will tell you guys that story and show you this awesome comic book after the coins drop. So first, let me give you a quick backstory of how this came to be. Let's go all the way back to last fall, October of 2022. My channel is pretty much brand new and I'm filming content for a Halloween special. Basically, I wanted to go out and hunt for like spooky, scary monster comic books and then talk about them on my channel in the spirit of the holiday. And I decided to do this in Palmer, Massachusetts. So Palmer is really close to me. It's also close to the big Brimfield flea market. And because of that, there are lots of antique shops, indoor flea markets, and consignment shops. And I go there all the time, not just hunting for comic books, but also antiques and collectibles. In fact, I featured all of these locations, on my channel several times in the past. And I knew I could go to like 3 or 4 places in one afternoon. So I thought this would be a perfect place to look for scary comic books. I could go and just be done with the video in one afternoon of filming. So that's what I did. And I went to like 4 places and I had some luck. But I finally made it to this last place. I was tired. It's just like all the other places. It's a big consignment shop, right? People basically pay for a booth. They put their stuff in there and you can go in and buy any of it. But some of the vendors have like nicer stuff and they have their stuff behind glass cases. Well, I was peeking in one of these glass cases and I saw a pretty cool comic book. It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #3. Awesome blue cover. There was also, I think, #4, which is the green cover. And I asked the person who worked there if I could, they could unlock the case so I could look at them. So I did. I took them out. I inspected them. And I thought they were really cool. I also noted the price, which was like, around $100. I think there was a sale going on. I thought it was a pretty good price for this comic book. But ultimately, I decided to pass. And there were a couple reasons for that. One, this was the day I decided to be picky. So like I said, my channel was pretty much brand new and I was just buying lots of comic books to talk about them on my channel. I wasn't being very discerning. I wasn't buying comic books I necessarily wanted for my collection, so this is the day I said, you know what? I'm going to be picky. I'm only going to buy things that are Halloween themed and that is it. Ninja Turtles are not Halloween themed. The second reason I didn't get it is, even though I grew up in the 80s and 90s, I was never a huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. I mean, I played the video game, I watched the cartoon, but I always consider myself like a year or two too old for them. All my younger family and friends were into them, but it wasn't really my thing. Still, I've always respected the Turtles because I'm a comic book collector and they have roots here in New England. They were created by a couple of New Englanders and, they have a huge history right here in the Pioneer Valley of Western Massachusetts where I live. In fact, Mirage Studios, which is their publisher, was based out here in Northampton, Massachusetts for years and years and years. So I do see these turtle books often. A lot of these, the artists and creators of the Turtles lived around here. They go to comic book shows. So I'm very much aware of them and I do think they're cool. But ultimately, that was the day I decided I'm gonna pass. So I filmed my footage, I edited it up, and then about a week and a half later, that video premiered right around Halloween. And an hour after that video came out, a friend of mine named Larry sent me a text. And he said, Mike, whatever you're doing, stop it right now and go find that TMNT #3. Go back to that location and buy it right away. And I was like, why? I looked it up. It's not worth that much money. And he said, no, it's not a regular one. That's a special printing. So what had happened was way back in 1985 when the Turtles came out, there was a convention in New Hampshire. And they printed off a special batch of like 300 to 500 of this issue #3. And the intent was that it was supposed to be like a nice uniform blue over the whole cover. But something went wrong with the printing process, the screening, and it ended up with some blotchiness of white. So the writers, Eastman and Laird, didn't really like it, and they sort of corrected the issues with the screening to make them all uniform blue. But about 300 to 500 of these books, depending on who you ask, snuck out, and mostly into New England. So you can find them in the wild, but it's rare outside of New England. And because it's so rare and there's so few of them, they're worth a lot of money. And my friend Larry had been looking for this book for a long time. So he said, if you can go back and find this book, I will absolutely pay you a lot more money for it. You know, you can flip it really quick. I'm so excited, you know, to finally stumble upon it. I said, you know what, Larry, I am on it, man. I jumped in my car, I raced back there, I ran into Palmer Co-op, ran up to that glass case, and it was gone. I actually filmed some footage of me when that happened, running back there and then just being sad. I made a sad face on the camera because I intended to tell you guys the story, win or lose. Like if I found it, hey, that's a great story. Hey, I found a book. Or if it was a failure, I wanted to talk about that failure and how, you know, knowledge is everything, right? I wish I knew about this book. I would have picked it up the first time. Still, I was sad, not for me. I was sad for Larry, and I called him up and said, hey man, I was pulling for you. It's gone, you know, and then I asked the people who work there, when did that comic book sell? And they said it was the week previous, which actually made me feel a little better because I was really worried like it had sold like, you know, half an hour before, like someone watched my video, knew what it was and went and got it. Anyways, that should have been the end of the story, right? It was a miss. I screwed up. A week later, Larry texts me and says, you're not going to believe this. I found that comic book at a flea market. It was a flea market like an hour and a half away. And I said, wow, you found another one of those variants? That's crazy. He goes, no, not another one. I found that book. He actually bumped into the guy who bought that book in the same location and was able to buy it from him for a really good price. So we couldn't believe it. I mean, we were laughing about it. We've been laughing about it ever since. Like, what are the odds of that, guys? Talk about like the comic book god smiling down on you. That book was meant for Larry. It was a great story. I always intended to tell it on my channel at some point. End of story though. Great story, but end of story. How does it have anything to do with the comic book I'm about to talk about? That's because yesterday I was back in Palmer, Massachusetts. I had a small window to go hunting and I knew I couldn't drive far from my house. So I chose, let me go to Palmer. I haven't been there in months, you know, let me check all these places, look at the comic books, see if there's anything worth getting. So I'd go up to a place, I'd film my intro that you guys see all the time. Hey guys, Mike here from Lunch Money Comics. I'm at this so-and-so place looking for comic books. I would film that and go into this place and not find really anything good. And then I go to the next place and do another intro and not find anything good. So I finally come to the last place, this Palmer Co-op. It is raining cats and dogs. I almost drove by it. I said, you know what? I'm going to film one more intro. I'm going to go in and just look in that case. That's it. I'm not going to walk around. I'm just going to check that case where I saw those books in the past, see if I have any luck. So I stood outside this place. I filmed another intro, which actually I will show you guys in a second. I was pretty pessimistic about my chances of finding something here. Watch this intro and tell me if you agree. Hey guys, it's a rainy, crummy day. I have a few minutes to check out this indoor flea market. I go here all the time. They do have comic books. It feels like it's pretty well picked through, but you never know. You find new stuff here every once in a while. Let's go see if we can have some luck. So as you can tell, guys, not exactly a ringing endorsement of optimism on my part. I thought my chances of finding something good here were pretty much slim to none. You know, it was pouring out. I was tired. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go in this last place. You know, I'm not even going to look around. I'm just going to go right to that case and see if there's anything good in there. So that's what I did. I walked in, walked up to that glass case, looked behind the glass, and saw a pretty awesome comic book staring back. It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. Now, there are several printings of this book, and I wasn't sure exactly what I was looking at. I did like a double or a triple take on it. And, you know, I asked the woman who worked there to unlock the case so I could inspect it. And I saw that it was a third printing. Now, the first printing is like the holy grail of TMNT collectors, right? They only made like 3,000 of them. They're exceedingly rare and worth a ton of money. The second printing isn't much better. They printed 6,000 of them, I think, and they're still worth thousands of dollars. But then they have the third printing, right? The turtles are taking off. They can make more of these books here, and they printed 36,000 of them. So 4 times as many as the first and second printing combined. However, you know, for people who can't find, you know, the first and second printing or can't afford it, the third printing is the next best thing. And honestly, guys, it's still worth quite a bit of money. So I got to inspect it. I saw it was in pretty great shape. And then I looked at the price. They had it listed at $125, and that vendor was having a 20% off sale. So it would cost me $100. I'd love to say I thought about it, but I didn't. I did not hesitate, guys. I bought it immediately. Here we go. It is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. Third printing, yes, but still #1. It's from 1985. It's published by Mirage Studios, which was a studio created by their creators, Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman. And this, of course, is the first appearance of the Ninja Turtles. Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, their mentor Splinter, and the villain Shredder. Awesome, awesome comic book. It has a black and white interior. You see it's sort of a magazine size, not your standard comic book size. And by most accounts, guys, this is the most successful indie comic of all time. You know, this has spawned basically a huge universe, a whole franchise of characters that are beloved to an entire generation, and this is their first appearance. This is a fantastic book. It's kind of hard to tell the condition of this through this bag. This bag is pretty dirty. Actually, you know what? Let me open it. I'll show you guys what it is. Okay, being very careful. So you can see what it looks like outside of the bag. You know, really dark cover. These show color breaks very easily, but there's not many blemishes to speak of. I mean, there's a little bit of white fuzziness at the top, tiny blemish down the bottom, but otherwise, you know, all the defects on this are pressable, and I am going to give it to my friend Jeff at Comic Spa to press this thing out. I think it'll look much better. I actually have it on high authority that the lower paper quality on these earlier TMNT books lets them press out really good, and they look fantastic afterwards. So I'm really excited to see how this looks. You can see the inside is black and white art. You can also see on the inside of the cover, it'll say third printing February 1985. There's also another way you can tell the difference between a third edition or third printing and first and second just by the cover. So if you look in the word turtles, the second T, there's a tiny little spatter of blood that is only present on the third printing, or at least it's not present on the first and second printings. So if you ever see this book in the wild and both T's are white, you know you're looking at an expensive book. So in terms of value, I've seen this book in terrible shape, you know, sell for $500. I'm not sure what the grade is on this. You know, maybe conservatively, I'll say a 6.5. Once it presses out, maybe a 7.5, in which case it's definitely worth more than that. I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to reassess once it comes back pressed. But either way, I think I got a great deal for my $100 that I put into it. And what am I going to do with it? I'm not so sure. Like I said, I'm not a huge TMNT fan, but I'll tell you guys, now that I'm holding this, it's a pretty cool thing to add to one's collection. But, you know, this is a good candidate, this book. I know people would appreciate it more than me. Maybe I will trade this book or sell it to try to get another book that I want more. I don't know. Ask me again when I get it back from Comic Spa. Either way, guys, it's a fantastic book. And to think, you know, I almost drove by this place on this day. I never would have gone in and seen this book, and I'm pretty sure somebody else would have scoffed it up. There you go, guys. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, #1, third printing for $100 at a flea market. Pretty awesome. All right, I put it in a new poly bag so that you guys can see it better, and I have less fear of damaging this book. Look how nice it presents in the Mylar, though. It really is a nice presenting copy. So the point I'm trying to make is this, guys. These big books do exist out there in the wild in these, you know, strange and unusual places. And the key to finding them is just persistence. You just got to keep going out there and looking for them and let that drive you, right? I think that's why most of us who look for these, you know, gems out at flea markets and yard sales do this, because it's the idea that there's this undiscovered treasure just waiting to be found. So you may have bad luck, but the next place might be better luck. You know, that next vendor you check, that next box of comic books might have that big book you've been looking for your whole life, that blue chip key, or maybe even that comic book grail you've always wanted. They are out there, guys. Just keep looking. I promise you keep at it and good things will come to you. In the meantime, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. As usual, if you like this sort of stuff, go down, hit that like button, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on Instagram under Lunch Money Comics IG. Yeah, pretty awesome. See you guys next time.